Let's focus in on one of the major agenda items for NATO leaders at the summit starting today. How to tackle, how to take on and fight back the threat coming from ISIS. For this, let's bring in Congressman Brad Wenstrup. He's a Republican from Ohio, a member of the House Armed Services Committee. Congressman, thanks so much for your time this morning.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So on the issue of ISIS and how to tackle ISIS, NATO leaders, they're discussing kind of a regional strategy. That's one of the things they're going to be talking about. But also here at home, a lot of the focus is on President Obama and what is his strategy. What do you make of what you've heard from President Obama since he's been overseas? He talks of destroying, degrading ISIS, also talking about making ISIS a manageable problem.
Well, I think that's part of the problem is we cling to words as we tend to do. You know, he says destroy and then says manage, and those are clearly two different things to most of the American people. And the American people want to have some sense of what we intend to do. I think Mr. Biden made a strong statement. I think Mr. Hagel made a fairly strong statement. We've heard some strong statements out of Europe, and I think that really the message needs to be not to manage this group, but they need to be destroyed. They've clearly showed how evil they can be.
When you talk about destroying ISIS, that is a very strong statement, maybe a good goal, but also a very long road. I want to know from your perspective, you served in Iraq as a combat surgeon. How do you propose doing that? How do you propose going about destroying ISIS?
Well, there's more than one thing that you do when you engage in any situation like this. They've made direct threats against the United States of America. And, you know, there's an old saying that came out of the 1700s, I believe, that says, when evil men combine, good men must associate. And I think that ties right into the NATO conference at this time. But there's several ways of attacking this. You have to cut off their supply route, you have to cut off their money route, and you have to be able to go in and destroy them. And a lot of it may be surgical. One of the things that I would never say militarily is what we won't do. I would not say we won't put boots on the ground. You don't know what you may need to do to achieve your objective. And let's face it, we need an objective, we need a strategy, and then we need the means to be able to do it. You need all three of those components, and it needs to be feasible. So let's start with the objective. The American people in the world don't need to know every bit of the strategy. That helps our enemy.
You don't think, right now, you are not satisfied that you've heard a clear objective coming from President Obama?
No, I don't think that we have. It seems like we heard one from Mr. Biden yesterday. He seemed pretty emphatic in what his feelings were. But we need that from our commander-in-chief to tell us really what we intend to accomplish and give the American people some knowledge of where we're headed.
One of the big issues that will definitely be facing members of Congress, yourself included, when you return next week, is what to do about the question of attacking ISIS in Syria. Some of your colleagues, Senator Bill Nelson, he's proposing a vote, actual legislation giving the authority to the president to clear up any legal question that he has the authority to strike ISIS in Syria. Do you support that?
Well, I'd have to see how we're exactly writing that up, but I do think that the president is engaging Congress more. I think that after the exchange for Bergdahl, when Congress was not involved, they were required to be. I think the president is more sensitive to involving Congress. So let's take a look at what we want that to actually say. I mean, really right now, there's not much of a border between Iraq and Syria. And if we're going to destroy this enemy, as we've talked about, then we may need to go into that area. But
do you
it
think
is a
a vote's
tricky
even
topic,
needed?
and it needs to be discussed.
Especially on that issue, because many people have said since ISIS is not respecting territorial borders, the United States shouldn't even have to, at this point, if you would need to go in and strike in Syria. Do you think there is even a need for a vote for the authority for the president to go in to do airstrikes in Raqqa?
Not necessarily. The president does have a lot of authority. I don't mind having the discussion, and we'll see what the sense of Congress is on that when we get back next week.
Do you think there will be a vote? I'm hearing some hesitancy. Obviously, you don't even think that there may be a need for it. One of the questions is always, is there the appetite for lawmakers on both sides of the aisle to have to stand up and take a vote that may come back and follow them, especially when you look at, unfortunately, the political calendar, which everyone takes into account. Is that part of the calculation here?
Right. It probably is for a lot of the members. I can't speak for all the members, obviously. If that's what it comes down to, and I can take a look at what's on the field per se in Iraq and Syria and feel that we need a vote, then I'd be willing to take a vote. But at the same time, I think the President has some authority here. And again, right now, the lines between Syria and Iraq really don't exist. And we clearly have an enemy that wants to destroy us. So I think the President has some authorities here.
We heard from the President's the President's advisor that taking on ISIS, the long-term goal of taking on ISIS, could very well likely go beyond an Obama administration. Do you think that there is the appetite, the resolve to continue that fight among the American people, to continue that fight well beyond an Obama administration?
Well, one of the things that's a responsibility of the President is to provide for our national defense, and also you'd want the American people to be supporting your efforts. And the President needs to make the case as to why. I think the American people, at least in my situation, while I'm here at home and out and about with the people, they are disgusted with what has happened, and they seriously feel the threat of ISIS and feel that we need to do something. How long we can sustain that remains to be seen. We've been engaged for a long time against an evil enemy. And to be honest with you, after 9/11, in my mind, I thought this is going to be a 30 to 40-year deal one way or another, because we need to change generations of thinking. So it's going to take leadership to create that over the long period of time. Yeah. And you're right, it probably will extend into another administration. And changing generations of thinking, it seems, still also needs to be a goal and a very huge challenge when it comes to continuing the fight that we're looking at right now being posed by ISIS. Congressman Brad Wenstrup, thanks so much for your time. We'll see you back in Washington. Okay, thank you so much. All right, of course. Let's get to